Imagine qualifying for the FIFA World Cup, 4 years of sacrifice, 4 years of training, 4 years of believing, and then discovering that your biggest opponent would not be Belgium, not Egypt, not New Zealand, but borders, visas, politics, and a war between your country and one of the host nations. This is the unbelievable story of Iran at World Cup 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kickoff Kings 26. Chapter 1. A Nation at War. February 28, 2026. A date that changed everything. The United States and Israel launched military strikes against Iran, an act of war, an international crisis, a moment that sent shockwaves across the entire planet. And somewhere in the middle of all of this chaos, Iran was still scheduled to play football on American soil at the FIFA World Cup. Think about what that means. A nation at war with one of its host countries, still expected to pack bags, board planes, cross enemy territory, and play football. Has anything like this ever happened in World Cup history? The answer is no, never, not once. And FIFA found itself facing a question it had never prepared for. How do you host a football tournament when two of the nations involved are actively at war? Chapter 2. The Visa Nightmare. Iran's original plan was simple. A training base in Tucson, Arizona, deep inside the United States, close to their match venues. Normal World Cup preparation. But nothing about Iran's World Cup would be normal, because the visas did not come. Days passed, weeks passed. Iran's players waited in Turkey, training in uncertainty, not knowing if they would even be allowed to enter America. 13 members of the Iranian delegation were denied visas entirely, including Mehdi Taj, the president of the Iran Football Federation himself. FIFA, coaches, managers, key administrative staff, people who had dedicated years to this team, left behind. Iran's Football Federation called it political interference in sport in its worst form. Yahoo Sports. And the U.S. position was equally clear. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that America would not allow individuals with ties to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to enter the country under the cover of a football tournament. FIFA. Two sides, two positions, both unmovable, and in the middle, a football team, just wanting to play. Chapter 3. Tijuana. Eventually, a compromise was reached. Iran's training base was moved from Tucson, Arizona, to Tijuana, Mexico, a border city. 27 minutes by air from Los Angeles, close enough to reach the stadium, but safely outside American territory. Iran's squad landed in Tijuana just before dawn after an overnight flight from Turkey, crossing into a Mexican border city to prepare for matches they would play in the United States. Yahoo Sports. Every other team in this World Cup had a hotel, a training ground, a base they could call home for the tournament. Iran had a border crossing, and a 27-minute flight they would take. Before and after every single match. Chapter 4. Match day only. The conditions imposed on Iran were extraordinary. Iran was permitted to enter the United States only on match days, not the day before, not several days early. Match day only. NPR. After each game, the team was required to return immediately to Tijuana. No overnight stay, no hotel recovery, no time to rest in the city where they had just played. NPR. The match would end, and within hours, Iran's players were back on a plane to Mexico. Iran's coach Amir Galanoy said his side were the most oppressed team in the whole World Cup. NPR. Every other team slept in their hotels after matches, recovered normally, prepared like professional footballers. Iran crossed an international border before and after every single game. No other team in World Cup history has ever faced conditions like these. Not one. Chapter 5. Torabi. And then came the moment that shocked even those who had been following this story closely. Iran played their opening match against New Zealand. A 2-2 draw, a creditable, fighting result. But after the final whistle, a new crisis emerged quietly. Iran winger Mehdi Torabi's visa expired the moment he left the United States after the match. FIFA. While his teammates held multiple entry visas, Torabi had been issued a single entry visa. The moment he crossed back into Mexico, his right to enter America was gone. An unused substitute, a player who had not touched the ball for a single second, suddenly unable to return for the next match. Because of a visa technicality, the football world could not believe what it was reading. The U.S. State Department eventually resolved the issue, but only after the story became international news. FIFA, a small victory in a very long battle. Chapter 6. 168. But through all of this, through the borders and the visas and the politics, Iran's players carried something else, something heavier than any of it. When they walked onto the pitch, they wore small pins on their shirts, the number 168, representing the victims of the Minab school attack, a tragedy that had struck Iran just before the tournament began. FIFA. 168 people killed in a school, children among them, and Iran's players chose to carry their memory into every match, onto the biggest stage in football, because for these men, this World Cup was never only about football. It was about representing a nation in pain, a people carrying grief, and a generation of young Iranians watching from home, hoping that somewhere, on a football pitch far away, their team could make them proud. Chapter 7. What FIFA did not say. FIFA promotes one message above everything else. Football unites the world. It is written on banners, spoken at press conferences, repeated endlessly. But Iran's story at World Cup 2026 asks a difficult question. How do you unite the world when one of the teams is living in a completely different World Cup from everyone else? FIFA approved Iran's move to Tijuana. FIFA worked behind the scenes to prevent withdrawal. FIFA kept the tournament together. But FIFA also said very little publicly about the conditions Iran faced, very little about matchday-only entry, very little about the 13 denied visas, very little about a football federation president who could not enter the country where his team was competing. The silence was not accidental, because acknowledging the full reality of Iran's situation would have forced uncomfortable questions about whether football and politics can ever truly be separated, about whether FIFA's promises of unity mean anything at all, when the most basic conditions of equal participation are not being met. Conclusion. The team that crossed borders Iran qualified for this World Cup. They earned the right to be here. And despite everything, they came. They crossed borders. They boarded planes at midnight. They played without key staff. They wore numbers on their chests for children who would never grow up. And they played football. Real football. Brave football. Because whatever one believes about governments and politics and international relations, these players are footballers, men who have spent their lives chasing a dream, men who refuse to let that dream be taken from them entirely. Iran's story at World Cup 2026 is not just a football story. It is a story about what sport demands of people. When the world around them refuses to cooperate, it is a story about perseverance, about pride, about a team that faced more obstacles than any other nation at this tournament, and showed up anyway. Tell us what you think in the comments below. Was Iran treated fairly? Did FIFA do enough? And do you believe politics and football can ever truly be separated? We want to hear from you. If this documentary moved you, hit that like button, subscribe to Kickoff Kings 26, turn on notifications, because here we tell every story, even the ones that make people uncomfortable. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Peace.